What is going on, people? So today we're going to speak about the FIFA Forward Enterprise. So for those of you that don't know, this is FIFA and Infantino basically inviting minority shareholder investment through private investing into major tournaments, namely the World Cup and other things of that nature. Now, why is this a big deal and what does it entail? So firstly, it's basically like every other organization and company is doing at a large scale right now, is inviting investment from external sources to increase the value of an organization with a view to create shareholder value, in short, right? So we've seen a lot of our favorite brands have been bought out by private equity, and sometimes what can happen is the quality of what the consumer gets is reduced, the consumer is stretched. So like, I'm just thinking, if you look back to Nike products, right? I was always Nike trainers, Nike trackies, Nike hoodies, Nike t-shirts, everything growing up. And when I go and look at that same stuff for my kids now, and I think, oh, that's a reputable brand, that's a good brand. And then you kind of touch the cloth, right? And this is obviously like a original United top from the early 2000s. Ruud van Nistelrooy was my favorite player wearing this one, for instance. Always reminds me of him, this kit, right? Hopefully he's wearing it. Hopefully he's the right player in this kit. But what I'm saying is that now you feel these things in JD Sports and like, yeah, okay, it's dry fit or it's listed as this, but I can't wear this in the British winter, right? It is literally training wear only. And even as training wear only, I'm thinking, so now I need to buy like the compression bottoms and all this stuff and the base layer, when like back in my day, it was just a lot easier. So the point is, people will take the brand, say that's really popular, people love it, we're not making as much money as we could, and because we're not making as much money as we could, let's pump money into it and basically then take the trimmings off the top by making it more expensive to the consumer, because that's where the money comes back from and for an return investment perspective. So now we've covered that, hopefully very broadly, because there's so much more to it, but not a finance channel, not claiming to be, just a bit of fun. So what we need to understand is that ultimately this is football selling its soul, right? That's where it comes down to. So I remember when I could go to school, and during school, it was the first year that Fulham became a Premier League club. So this is when we did have the likes of Kewell, Viduka, Louis Saha, all these players, and I'm sure many, many others, right, that I can't think off the top of my head, but these were when championship players were coming into the Prem and really showing what they can do and staying there, and of course having some yo-yo seasons. But there at Craven Cottage, you would get a ticket for tens of pounds, right? Now, if I try and say, you know what, as a Man United follower, fan, disciple, if I go and watch a game, they're not going to be on the open market. So already as a resale value, I'm going to be paying like 150, 160, 170 plus a tube ticket, plus a drink, whatever. I've spent just going in London up the road, 5, 6, 7, 8 tube stops, right, from central London, and I'm down £250 already. So we can already see there's a trajectory it's going on. We've read the stories about Manchester United season ticket holders who literally since the Second World War have had generational season tickets and now are being told, sorry, you're done, hand it over to the next person. And actually those tickets are sold by exception as opposed to a match-going fan. They're sold here and there to tourists, essentially, which of course are going to affect the environment of the game, and it's not protecting the integrity of football, right? Imagine if you were going to the same place again and again and again and paying your right to go there, and now they said, no, someone has a higher priority over you because they're in town for a little bit. Doesn't make a lot of sense when there is an allocation for that, but you need to keep the heart and the soul in the club. Otherwise, when you're a match-going fan, if it isn't the chance, like I've been at Man United games where suddenly people break into Park, wherever you may be, right? And start singing songs about players that have gone yonks ago, Cantona, right? Like very, very long time ago. And then they're because they are the OG fans who have passed that kind of law, if you like, of club football and the cult heroes that make up the club through many a year, not just people who have watched YouTube highlights. And I also think that's a lot about the debate with Messi and Ronaldo. Slight diverge, right? But people haven't really seen Ronaldo play because 5 years ago he wasn't at Madrid. He had just moved to Juve, right? Whereas Messi has had this trajectory where people have been able to see him play a hell of a lot, even at PSG, for instance. Whereas Serie A, Juventus, obviously the 2 seasons at United. First season was great, second season didn't work out, unfortunately, and then it's been Saudi. But getting more to the point about this investment, right? I think the biggest concern that people have now is that the product will dwindle. The Club World Cup, no one really asked for it. And to be honest, the final between Chelsea and PSG, it was good. But if you're, for instance, an Argentina player, if you're Enzo Fernandez, you did not have a break for literally a year. Last season's pre-season, right, what you would have had is the Club World Cup paying all the games into the build-up, right? So you're in training early, remember. So you finish the Premier League season, then you're in training, right? And then you're flying, you're playing those games, you play a full Premier League season, Champions League, all that business, right? Other two cups, Carabao, FA Cup, however far you've gone. Then you roll into the World Cup, and then here you are again. So you've had the World Cup, and now you're going back to the Prem in 2-3 weeks, right? So if you don't get your move to Madrid. So what I'm basically saying here is that players are going to burn out, right? So that's the first point, players are going to burn out. The consumer will suffer because everything will just be crazy, right? Maradona said it, he goes, they will take football and they will split it into 4 quarters and sell you adverts, right? So now we're thinking there's already a problem with the amount of time that a ball is in play in the Premier League and in the Championship and in other leagues, right? Off the top of my head, it's less than an hour, right, by the time you go and take a throw. And they're bringing in these rules, fine, but we actually play to see football, not someone standing there thinking when they're going to throw in, or the person running to the corner flag to take the corner, only to decide for someone else, to put their hand up to say, tactic 1 or tactic 2. We want the ball in the box. We want to see goals. We want to see celebration. We want to see vibes, right? That's why we watch football. And that brings me to the third point, right? That a lot of football is an element of escapism, right? It's like going back to the old days where they said, if you want to control people, give them theatre and bread, right? And this is the modern day theatre, i.e. theatre of dreams, a big cauldron, right? Get people in. If you go to the Roman ruins, you see how everything used to be. And it's pretty much the same now. Football is just the epicenter, right? And that's why the World Cup final is the most watched televised event ever. And yeah, look, I think what we need to understand is that this will happen. There will be pushback. And the European Super League did get pushback. And that's why now there's a bit of control around the governing bodies. And they changed the Champions League format to literally be that anyway. So football will change. And I don't want to be the guy saying back in my day. But I think we will see a lot of mavericks now not turn up, because football is going to get really even more athletic, right? Where you've got to be at least 5'10". You've got to be able to do 0 to 100 meters in under 10 seconds. You've got to be able to basically be an athlete. I'm thinking like Patrick Dorgu is like your archetype player for entering the market now. And gone are the days where you had an Eden Hazard. What to speak of a Leo Messi, right? That's a given, right? That's a once in a blue moon, once in a lifetime, once in a Yuga, right? Player. But if we look at how this is going to play out now, I think it's going to be unfortunate. I think we're going to see a slower decline of football. It's going to be more tactical, and it's going to be football overload, right? Where a lot of people can't afford to go to be match-going fans. And I think this investment will basically strangle the game further, because these shareholders will enter this environment, and they'll enter in the sense that what they'll want to do is stay around. It's not a pump and dump, right? It's not, I'm going to put in £10 million, take out £15 million in 5 years. It's going to be, I'm going to park my money there, because who do you sell the World Cup to after then, right? This to consumers. We know there's an interest. There's billions of football fans. And I think that's where it's going to head. So is there an upside, just to finish the video on a positive? Look, we will get more football, and if that's our thing, there'll be more things to talk about, more content to create, more amazing moments, more Beckham halfway line goals, more Ronaldinho against Chelsea outside the box, where he did this little trick with his foot and poked it in the corner past Petr Cech. Yeah, of course that will happen, but I hope it's not at the cost of selling football's soul. So I think there needs to be, Gary Neville's cooled down a lot recently around the independent governing body for football. But yeah, let's see where we land. I think we're going to see, hopefully, a lot more interest in grassroots football, and a lot more coaches come up. A lot more people, especially from the Indian backgrounds, get involved in football. I think there's a huge untapped market there. And again, with India now making it that OCI holders can play for their clubs, I think we might see a few players. There's a player knocking around in the Scottish Prem that I've heard of. There's a few others, I'm sure, internationally. And it might be not too long till we get Vikas Staroso from France 2.0 playing for India. So I'll leave it there. Let me know what you think.